Hello and welcome to Phil20. So this is my first YouTube video and is me talking to myself about Pathfinder 2.0 or 2E or 2nd edition and various other names because why not? But basically Pathfinder but version 2. Ooh. It's a big old juicy core book. It's everything you need. Why is it everything you need? Because they have come up with some absolutely fantastic mechanics that are brilliantly simple for simple people like me. And that's really important because accessibility and playability are probably the most important things in any roleplay game. You want to be able to just get on with it, and you don't want to spend 2 hours in every session going, let me just check page number 249 of paragraph section C to find out exactly how that doll did exactly do that thing that I just said it did. You don't want to do that. What you do want to do is go, hey, did I beat that DC number by 10? I can count to 10. Yes, I did. Boom. What happens? Something cool. And that is one of my favourite mechanics about 2nd edition Pathfinder, because it's bloody brilliant. I'm not sure I can swear, but that's quite a low-key swear word, so we'll probably get away with that one. But the beat by 10 critical success or critical fail is just genius and is fun and quick and easy and one of the strongest mechanics in this system, bar one other groundbreaking mammoth achievement on behalf of Pathfinder 2E. The second one is, wait for it, you guessed it, the 3-action economy. They love it at Paizo. They're really proud of it. And I'm not at all surprised because having played D&D, kind of 3rd edition, 3.5, dabbled lightly in 5th edition and played a metric ton of Pathfinder 1st edition, action economy becomes one of those things that you really get bogged down in most other games. Trying to remember if it's a standard action or a move action or a free action, or all those different kinds of action economy terms that a lot of other games use can become a bit fiddly, and not in a bad way. They're not bad concepts, they're very sensible concepts, and they were trying to create something when they did that. But just going, hey, you've got 3 actions, do 3 things, crack on, is really, really helpful for engaging players, because instead of them having to kind of go, well, if I wanted to move to the door and then open the door and then, oh, hang on a minute, I'm out of actions. Oh, what a letdown. You've got that scenario where in a lot of other systems, you suddenly find that there are walls to cool. And walls in general are not the best solution. I live in Great Britain. We have Hadrian's Wall. It's now very short. You can quite easily climb over it. I used to live near Hadrian's Wall. When I was a very small child, I could climb over most of Hadrian's Wall because obviously the Romans built it, and it's not really lasted that well. Obviously, it wasn't just in England, it went all the way around the Roman Empire. Different video, different story, different topic. Generally, walls aren't that cool. Take from that what you will. Anyway, back to the cool wall. So, 5th edition and 1st edition Pathfinder often got stuck in that trap of, I want to, oh wait, I haven't got the action that I need to do that left, and now I don't feel like a very cool heroic character anymore. And that can be really frustrating because when you've got a very structured action economy like the move and standard, so I can make a move action and then I can make an attack action. Why are they different? Like, why is moving, Exhibit A, look, here's my arm, attack action, yeah, check that out, different to the old moving my legs and walking action? It's one of those unusual concepts that I think probably, if you stop and think about any role-playing game for any extent of time, you kind of start going, So simplifying that down into simply 3 actions means that you're in a position where you don't have to try and remember an extra layer of stuff on top of everything you're already trying to do within the game. And most of the time, when you're in a game, you do get suckered in. So you are in that kind of, oh my God, my character might die. This is quite tense. I do really need to get out of this room before the Baylor explodes and does a horrendous amount of damage to my 10 hit point left character. I need to move to the door, open the door, and move out of the room to successfully escape. Anyone ever tried kind of running out of a room? It's quite easy to kind of run up and grab a door in your own house and throw it open and move through it. But it's not in Pathfinder 1, because there is that, oh, hang on, I've got a move action, then it's another move, or is it a standard action? Oh, well, anyway, I've managed to open the door, but now I'm stuck in a doorway, and that's the end of me. And like I said, it's not a bad thing. They're there for a reason, but it's just not quite cool enough when you're actually kind of, up to your neck in it. As you can see, I'm up to my neck in being a tiny stormtrooper. Stormtroopers are famous for not being very good shots, and possibly also not being able to open doors and escape from rooms, much like player characters. Whereas with a 3-action system, I don't have to worry about standard or move or attack. I've got a much more solid, simple mechanic to just grab hold of instantly and go, oh, I've got 3 actions. I move up to the door, I open the door, I move out of the room. 3 actions. So I've made, by all accounts there, a quote-unquote move action. Then I've used maybe a standard action or interact, as they call it in Pathfinder 2e, which I quite like because that's a general kind of term. I'm interacting with things. Oh, I've opened a door. I'm successfully a player character. And then I've moved out of the room and the Baylors explode. I've got clear, happy days. My character's survived. Oh, I'm a functional human being in this world. I can do multiple things. Woohoo! But that's really important because it's also encompassing many other kind of facets of gameplay, like dropping a sword is still a free action. So you still have the free action element of the economy. So you can technically have, as a low-level character, comfortably out of the gate, 4 actions. 4! That doesn't imbalance things, though, because there's a really, really cool mechanic, and it's -5 accumulative for attacks. So at level 1, where, in Pathfinder 2, let's be perfectly clear, a level 1 Pathfinder 2 character is a little bit harder than your average kind of Joe kind of fighter from Pathfinder 1 or 5th edition. You're a little bit more heroic. And that's good, because so are the monsters. They basically, everything is amped up a little bit. And this is one of my golden rules for homebrewing and tinkering. Spoiler alert. If you do something to the rules when you're homebrewing and it's universal, and what I mean by that is it benefits the players, but will also benefit all other NPCs and monsters in the game, it automatically balances to some extent. So a good example of a Phil's Homebrew Rule of the Week, I'll work on a jingle for that, bear with me, this is the first video, is very simple. I allow dex to be added to ranged damage. So if you're a bow user and you have a dex of +4, you're clearly a cheesemonger, well done, but you get to do your bow damage of D10. Got a crossbow, boom, hitting you for D10, add in +4. And I do that because, yes, every player character goes, oh, well, my bow character is now very, very powerful. And as the DM, I go, oh, yeah, you are quite powerful. So are my orc bow wielding rangers who have the kind of, environment at their advantage. And by the way, did I mention they're riding velociraptors and using longbows and adding their dex? So you've automatically got like a damage buff that's benefiting everybody. It's not stacking in one direction. So if you say, oh, only monsters can do something, and it's a jump in their capability, in their power curve, that's going to cause problems because you're starting to off-kilter core mechanics. Whereas when you're doing something that generally benefits everything in the game, yes, there's power creep, but everyone's getting the power creep, so it's not such a big deal. So back to attacks, because that's where we were a few minutes ago, before my random homebrew rule of the week. You can make 3 attacks at level 1. Exciting times. The problem is you're level 1, so you've probably got an above average to hit roll. You can quite comfortably be a fighter and have a substantially better attack roll than you would for, say, a 5th edition. Well, a lot better than 5th edition because they their numbers are pulled down, so they have lower overall hit points for their monsters, and they have I suppose lower DC targets in general, and essentially a lower power curve, but a more steady power curve. It's not bad. It's not rubbish. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that they are on kind of one curve and 2E's on a slightly different curve. But when you kind of compare them, they're kind of the same. They just have either slightly lower or slightly higher numbers to achieve the same effect at the table. Now, when you make your first attack roll, typically, because there are things that tweak and modify this, which is also why this system is really cool, you don't have any penalties. You just go, what's my base attack? They, in Pathfinder 2, use proficiency. Very similar in concept, but more... what's the word I'm looking for without being too flamey against 5th edition? But it's more tailored and varied to some degree based on the character type that you're playing. So let's do a quick breakdown of what I mean by proficiency. So what you do, if you are considered proficient, hey look, by the way, I'm flicking through a rulebook. I probably said at some point you shouldn't really bog yourself down by flicking through action economy. So these symbols are super important right here. Look for these when you're looking in the feats tables and other points of reference for abilities and actions, because they are the kind of the golden tickets to what your action economy is costing you with particular actions. That is super useful. And I'm not going to lie, like for the first probably 20-30 minutes of the playtest for 2nd edition, I wasn't quite sure what they meant, which was a bit silly. And now that I've found that and looked at that, which I did quite early on, it's so bloody obvious. It hurts, and I don't know why I didn't figure that out myself. But hey, if there's like one diamondy shape that costs you one of your 3 actions, hey, guess what? If there's 2 of those, that's right, it costs 2 actions of your 3 actions per turn. And can you work out the last one? 3? Yep, it's a full round action, as we used to call them before the Great Revolution. So, oh yeah, there was like a backwardsy arrow one. Ooh, mysterious. That is a reaction, which you can do out of turn in specific circumstances. But that doesn't really answer the question of proficiency. But it is a handy kind of talking point. The last one, the hollow diamond, the most mysterious of all the diamonds, is a free action. So happy days, you can just crack on now that you've clearly mastered the 3-action economy. So proficiency is super cool. And in the top left of the character sheet, which is all kind of laid out right at the start of the book, they simply put, if you're untrained, it's +0. If you're trained, it's your level, +2. So guess what? If you're level 1, that's 3. A proficiency of 3 for skills, for saves, if you're trained in saves. Everything is a proficiency. Again, very 5th edition, but again, tailored and tweaked as a concept, because then you get expert, which means you're an expert. That is 4 plus your character level. Now, who's an expert in fighting? Oh, that's right, the fighter. So he's an expert with martial weapons, whereas perhaps someone like a rogue is only trained in certain weapons. I say perhaps that is the case. Like, oh, I'm a wizard. I've got trained in simple weapons. So the fighter has a base attack based on his proficiency, because remember, everything's based on a proficiency, of at level 1, his level of 1 plus 4. So the fighter comes out at level 1 with a base attack of +5, plus his strength or his dex modifier to hit rolls. So half decent fighter, he's got a +3 in his strength. He's strong, but he's not like Stalinium strong. So +3, +5. He's got a base attack coming out of the gate at level 1 of 8. Which sounds kind of redonkulous when you kind of consider that versus Pathfinder 1 or 5th edition. A bit more ridiculous when you put it in comparison with 5th edition. But things have got higher armor classes because, again, you apply proficiency to your armor class, which, again, makes sense. It's a very solid mechanics system that 5th edition kind of led the way on, but 2nd edition Pathfinder is bit flamey here, much like Pathfinder 1 did with 3.5, taken it to the next level of kind of evolution. They've kind of gone, hey, that's a great concept. That's a really good idea. But here's how we can take that and just move it a little bit further forward as a concept and make it more dynamic. And that's important because who doesn't want to be a fighter that's really chuffing fighty? Now, we're back to the kind of the multi-attack thing. So yeah, my level 1 fighter, he's got a +8 attack roll with his longsword. Now we're going to roll some dice. Bam, first attack, he rolls a 15 +8. Bam, that's probably a hit. That's a bloody good roll. Second attack, because he starts getting power crazed on his +8, is now -5 penalty, unless he's using an agile weapon. Uh-oh. Now we're getting into the kind of the chunk, the kind of the, I suppose a lot of people kind of call kind of like over complexity, if they just don't want to do anything at all other than roll a d20 and go add 1 number. Oh, that's it. I'm done. Someone else's turn. I personally love a good bit of kind of crunchy chunk kind of rules. So having weapons that have flavor rules that are designed to give them a bit of kind of world feel, or not realism. Realism's a silly word and should never be used in context of sitting around a table rolling dice kind of fantasy sci-fi kind of setting, because they just, no, it's not, is it? It's a fun game of great storytelling and make-believe, and realism and kind of quote-unquote kind of simulation or milsim should be avoided, because it's not fun. It's grindy and really, really dull. If you want to do that, by all means do it, but it does become a grind and takes a lot of the fun out of it. So we're power crazed because we've got a +8 on our attack roll, and we're clearly God's gift to combat and an unstoppable force of kind of orc slaughtering kind of madness. So boom, first hit out of the gate was an absolute stonker. Could have even possibly been a critical, because again, the critical rule. If we beat their armor class by 10 or more, that's a critical hit. No more 17 to 20, although it kind of still is, because obviously the number on the dice determines it, but it's now not arbitrated by the number on the dice, apart from the holy 20, the grail of dice rolling. The biggest number on the dice, it's like 11 for Spinal Tap, is the golden goose. But we roll our second attack. Now, normally, before we get into the kind of the crunch, we take a -5 penalty on that second attack to represent the kind of degradation and reduced value of flailing, as opposed to being kind of metered out, controlled aggression. So second attack, -5 penalty. So now really, in effect, what we're saying is we've only got a +3 to hit, because we had +8, -5, +3. Hey, I can do some simple maths. Don't ask me to do more complicated maths than that. I'm just saying, it won't go well unless there's a calculator involved. So, boom, we're out of the gate. We've hit on the first attack, +3 on the second attack. Doesn't sound too unreasonable. In fact, you know, in, I suppose, more traditional 5th E, kind of 5th edition, 5th E, there's a combination of systems there, and Pathfinder 1, that's not unreasonable and not uncommon. You know, that's basically a level 1 fighter in 3.5 D&D or 3rd edition D&D with a strength score of +2. So, you know, it's not unheard of. But then we get to the third attack. And now, being totally power crazed, delusional, and level 1, we're looking at a -10 on that third attack. So now we're not +8, we're not +3, we're -2, because we're flailing like a fool, drunk on our own grandeur and glory, and just probably going to miss unless we roll really high. So you get diminishing returns. Now, at higher level, when that +8 has become +15, or whatever it may have become based on your level and all those other kind of factors, you do get better rates of return on multiple attacks. And again, if you use certain feats that exist, Fighter has a great feat where you can negate the minus kind of penalty on your first miss. So if you miss on your first attack, you can then make a follow-up attack that's still at full BAB. It's not at -5. So you've got already these wonderful feat trees that are clearly really kind of zoned in on these concepts of the core system to really kind of get your teeth stuck into. And it's brilliant. It's really, really good. Once you start really kind of getting into that, which I'll hopefully do in later videos, you can really start to kind of zone in on how you want to kind of create a character concept that's going to move forward and essentially benefit from a 3-action system, which is very cool, because that's a level of meta. And let's be clear, I'm not a munchkin min-maxing kind of madman, but it is cool when there is a good meta to kind of learn and understand and grow within, in terms of your understanding as a player, but also as a GM as to what can be done. So you've got this brilliant, simple system where you're normally adding or subtracting some very simple, straightforward numbers to achieve something. And that can be in both directions. So you can hit, you can miss, you can crit fail, and you can crit succeed. And we've only just begun. So out of the gate, it's blimmin' good. I'm going to do follow-up videos that are going to kind of, I suppose, delve into kind of more of the nitty-gritty. And I also want to do some that focus on kind of what you can do with character creation, because, I mean, we're 20 some odd minutes into this, nearly 25 minutes into this, and I've really only talked about some of the really simple base mechanics of this system. And there's a lot more. a lot more to get into. At least I hope there is. Otherwise, this will be a very, very short-lived series of videos where the second video will be me being like, oh, hey, guess what, guys? Like, covered everything in the first video, so see you later, bye. And that's the end of it. But that's not going to be the case because there's loads. Anyway, let me know in the comment section what you'd like to kind of see focused in on, because there are, with new systems, and I've had a good chunk of time with this before I've done this video. I've not like got the rulebook yesterday. There was a brilliant Humble Bundle deal, by the way. I'm sure you've all seen it. If you haven't seen it, you may have missed it, but I still recommend for you to pick the core book up, because this core book, PDF or paper, I prefer paper. PDFs are cool and great, but you want this in your life, don't you? You know, you've got to think of it in two. Oh, look at this. You know, there's nerdage going on when he's put little tags for all the different sections of his book for quick reference. You want a good sized book like this because if someone breaks into your house, it's very heavy. You can bludgeon them with it. It's probably, I reckon, two-handed like this, it's definitely a D8 damage. Bludgeoning, so good against skeletons. If you are obviously in a neighborhood that is, you know, it's struggling with an undead problem, you know, this is a good weighty tome for the smiting of skeletons. It's also it just has everything in it. I think you don't have to worry about going, do I need another book? You buy this, and one person in the group has it, and that's a pain, but you can still work with it as long as you kind of can structure your time with it as the DM or GM, depending on the term that you prefer, and that the players can use it to do their leveling up. A lot of their leveling up they can do themselves. We'll do a separate kind of topic on kind of leveling up and I suppose breaking down kind of how that process works. But it's very, very, very content rich. And obviously being a major new release arc, there's constant drops coming up. So we've got the Advanced Player's Guide coming up. Guess what that is? It's a guide at how to be a more advanced player. Yeah, it's got some new cool classes in it. So they're always adding content. You've got a lot of new kind of arcs coming out in terms of adventure paths, or APs, as the lingo goes. That's great. You know, we're at the start of the curve, I think is what I'm trying to say. And based on the redonkulous volume of content that they released for Pathfinder 1, which is literally like a biblical amount of world fluff, of just colossal amounts of characters, of feat options, class options, all the kind of the stuff that enables you to go, hey, do you know what I fancy playing? I fancy playing a pirate necromancer ninja. And the DM being like, okay, well, let's see how it goes. And you're able to do that because you can use the right combination of feats and classes and skills and blah, blah, blah to create your pirate ninja. And crack on with that class, by the way. But being at the start of the curve is good because it also means that you've got time to center yourself within the world of the 3-action economy and the beat by 10 critical, which applies to many things. I kind of almost want to do a whole extra video just in more detail than that. I'm not gonna lie, because there's a lot to talk about. And with lockdown easing, but maybe coming back, but maybe staying away, but perhaps not, but maybe will, we've got plenty of time to hang out, chat gaming goodness, and generally get grounded in Pathfinder 2E, or 2nd edition, or Pathfinder 2, Return of the Pathfinder, or whatever you want to call it. So this is going to be me signing off. Leave me some comments in the comment section telling me that I'm a rambling fool. Don't obviously specifically say that unless you actually genuinely think I'm a rambling fool. I don't want just a comment section full of, hey, you're a rambling fool, because that's what you asked me to put. Feel free to put any questions you might have relating to perhaps rules that you kind of find too crunchy or don't quite get, or want some kind of helpful tips and tricks or gaming hacks, because I have several. I say several, I've loads that I'm going to kind of creep release. You remember earlier in the video, back a bit, I was just like, Phil's DM tip of the week. Remember, there's going to be a jingle for that, other than my terrible jingle. And that was add dex to range damage. Because it's cool and makes archery a little bit scary, which is really cool at the table, because you can suddenly have like characters being like, let me just roll a d8. Oh, I rolled a 1. Oh, 1 point of damage. Suddenly going, oh, I rolled a 1, but it's 4 points of damage. And then it's a little bit cooler, a little bit scarier. It also means that you can't have like someone with a bow kind of go, I'll shoot you with my bow unless you do what I say. And the player go, yeah, well, I've got 7 hit points. So the chances of you one-shotting me are almost impossible. So I'm going to just ignore you and attack you and not have any engagement with the possibility of threat that actually represents to you as a character. So those little tweaks, they change the way that the game feels. Archery goes from being one of those things that without, I suppose, an excessive feat tree backing up the person with the bow, it just gives it a nice buff. And remember, goblins with bows and sneak and like 1 level in rogue to get an extra d6 of sneak damage go from being silly, stupid, rubbish goblins to stealthy ninja goblins of death. And who doesn't want that at their table? Well, the players won't want that. But as the DM, you want that. I terrorized a party with 2 goblins that I had created with the NPC rules. And I used tactics. They were actually goblin ninja. And they had short bows, and they made hide checks, and they made move checks to remove themselves from line of sight so they could make hide checks. And at night, these 2 goblins clambered on roofs and shot at their bows at player characters with sneak attack, and were genuinely considered to be at least 2 or 3 challenge ratings higher than they actually were by the party, because they were like, this is the most terrifying and horrible combat we've ever been in. The DM is going to wipe us out with goblins. They weren't that powerful at all, but they felt scary because of a little bit of damage buff, a little bit of tactics, and a little bit of goblin ninja. And who doesn't like goblin ninjas? Well, clearly I do. So leave me some comments. Let me know if there are any things about 2E that you want kind of pointers on. I'm going to, obviously, in the next video, have another homebrew of the week kind of concept idea. If you want to have a discussion with me about how ridiculous it is to allow people to use their decks on range attacks and how that will completely imbalance the game, by all means. I've used it in every single campaign I've ever ran, and it's never ever been an issue. So don't panic about stuff like that. Just go, yeah, you know what? It's cool. I'm just going to do it. And if it doesn't work out and it is an absolute nightmare, undo it, because you're the DM. And as long as you frame things, so you're halfway into a campaign, I suppose I should clarify this. You're halfway into that campaign and you think, I'm going to start doing that, and then it's a problem. Don't be scared to just undo it, but remember, ask your players, because if you're halfway into something, they're invested too. So you need to check that. Let them have a vote. Go on democratic. And then if you don't like what they say, be a DM and go, well, I'm doing it anyway. Don't do that, it was a joke. But anyway, I'm signing off. leave me some comments, ask me some questions, get those creative juices flowing, and I will see you on the next one where hopefully we'll continue this conversation about Pathfinder 2e. Anyway, go out and buy it. It's bloody great. Bye.